Hello, everybody, and welcome back to yet another installment in our special series, Screened Plays. Tonight, we are doing a very special recording as it is Pride Month themed, and we are having a very fun discussion all about a very special Pride-centered film, The Birdcage, which was a French play that then was made into a 1978 Franco-Italian film, which then went on to have some sequels, and then it was made into a musical with Harvey Fierstein doing the book, the wonderful great Harvey Fierstein doing the book, and also George Hearn was the original Albin in that, Mr. Sweeney Todd himself. And then you have this film, which we're going to be talking about tonight, which is the 1996 film, The Birdcage, directed by Mike Nichols, adapted by Elaine May, and starring Robin Williams, Gene Hackman, Nathan Lane, Diane Weiss, Dan Fetterman, Calissa Flockhart, Hank Azaria, and Christine Baranski. I mean, talk about a star-studded 90s cast.
Oh, I know.
Yes. And joining me on this deep dive into the world of Coleman Goldman, the Birdcage drag experiences, you know, Fosse, Marsha Graham, Madonna, you know, all that good stuff. Michael Kidd.
But we keep it all inside.
Keep it all inside, friends.
Yes. But yes, so joining me, we have a returning face from our previous Pride episode, all about the musical Company in concert with Neil Patrick Harris. It is the wonderful Graeme McClelland. So, Graeme, welcome. Tell us what's in your cup, and how did you come to this film?
So wonderful to be back. I am currently drinking a bit of sherry. I believe it's Spanish sherry, because I just thought it was I want something sweet today, because this film is such a sweet part of my memory. I remember I originally came to this film because my parents showed it to me like years ago when I was a kid.
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
Because they were like, this is such a fun movie. These are great performances, amazing actors, and like you should definitely watch it. So I've loved The Birdcage like years before I even knew I was queer, years before I even knew what gay was. The Birdcage was just an incredible film. And it's like, when I got the chance to rewatch it and now the chance to talk about it, I leapt at the opportunity.
I love that. And coming back from his wonderful star-turn interview with our associate producer, Jillian Robinson,
hello,
all about TYT Theater, it is the wonderful Logan Hickey. Hello, Logan.
Hello.
Welcome back, sir. We got a panel of Yorkies here.
Right? We're all York grads, and look, we're making a podcast together.
Exactly.
I mean, I'm like an honorary York grad.
Okay, that's fair. You were there in spirit.
You were there in spirit.
It's okay. You got out when it was the correct time to get out.
Exactly.
I think Mackenzie and I are both masochists. It's fine.
We stayed till the very end, man.
Yep.
I took those beatings. I took those floggings.
I always wondered what it was like if I would have stayed, but you know what?
We can tell you after. We can tell you afterwards.
Yeah, exactly.
So, Logan, tell us what's in your cup tonight, and how did you come to this film?
Well, what's in my cup is a Ontario cider from Thornbury Craft Co.
Ooh.
It is my. Oh, come on! Don't blur it. Let's go. There we go.
Yeah,
I think you got a flash enough.
Yeah.
It is a wild blueberry elderflower apple cider. It is an Ontario brewery. And it is something I discovered just a few weeks ago, and it is delicious.
Yes.
You can get it at most LCBOs if you go hunting for it.
Interesting. And how'd you come to this film?
How did I come to this film? I came to it a little bit later probably than Graeme did, because I had already come out. I was even in university. It was when I just began looking into songs to perform that were LGBTQ, and I came upon La Cage aux Folles. I had previously not known about La Cage. And then I learned of The Birdcage through my research into La Cage, and of course fell in love with it, which is why I jumped at the opportunity to be on this episode.
Love that.
You can't jump at the opportunity. I already did that.
Well, we all could be jumping for joy for this film.
I definitely am.
Yes. And for me tonight, I am drinking... What am I drinking tonight? It is a mango passion fruit Crystal Light.
Ooh.
And I came to this film... So, how did I come to this now? I'm trying to think about it. It was my friend's mom. She knew I loved Nathan Lane as a performer because we had just watched The Producers.
Another good one.
Which is fantastic. That is such a fun piece where he plays the terrifically devious Max Bialystock.
Mhm.
And her were going through his filmography, because Nathan Lane is more than just Timon from Lion King, as many people know him for. He's done a plethora of work. And she said, well, have you ever seen The Birdcage? I said, no, what's The Birdcage? She's like, well, you got to watch it. It's got Robin Williams and Nathan Lane and, Gene Hackman, Diane Wiest. And it's one of those things where it's like, you got to check it out. And, even though I am straight, it's like, this film just spoke to me because I love theater. I am in theater. And so Nathan Lane, Robin Williams, and just the story of acceptance and love, like unfettered, undying love, and the lengths you will go because you love someone, was what really spoke to me about this piece more than anything else. And the thing is, like, this premise is something that's been reinvented so many times of Meet the In-Laws. I mean, you can go all the way back to Sidney Poitier with Guess Who's Coming to Dinner, right? Like that premise has continued on about kind of meeting the in-laws and then trying to change yourself or adapt yourself to fit that mold, So it's one of those things where the premise always worked, but this has always kind of been my favorite version of that premise because of how strong the cast is and the great kind of work that's done with this ensemble casting.
It really is a superstar cast for a movie that I just don't think gets enough appreciation.
It doesn't. I mean, people always talk about Robin Williams with like Good Will Hunting and Aladdin and
Mrs. Doubtfire.
Mrs. Doubtfire. What's some of the ones he did? Insomnia, 1 Hour Photo, Flubber.
Yeah. Oh gosh, Flubber. Another underrated Robin Williams.
Another underrated one. But, this is one where people always forget that he did this, and it's like, it's so good. I mean, the fact that he was supposed to play Albert originally, but then he wanted to play Armand instead, and it's like, of course, that totally works. Yep. It's just it's such a great film. So yes, that's how I came to it, was things. And then of course I found it. Excuse me. Then of course I found out later that it was a musical with my favorite Sweeney Todd, George Hearn.
Oh, he's
as
great.
The OG Albin. And so I automatically bought the CD, and I Am What I Am is like an anthem for everybody to just own who you are. And so that piece has always spoken to me. And so, yeah, I mean, I just love it. I love it. I love this story in all its iterations. It's just such a juicy piece of art that everybody can keep sinking their teeth back into. So love it. But let's get into our general thoughts about the film, first of all, because we're going to dive deeper into the cast and production elements and things like that. But let's just kind of give our overall impressions of the film itself. So, Logan, what are your general thoughts about the film and Mike Nichols' adaptation of it?
The first one, after rewatching it, after doing a lot of like learning and educating myself over the years, I've realized just how outdated there's certain aspects of it are. So that's sort of my first thing is I cringed more on my latest watch through than I remember cringing before, just based on a lot of racial stereotypes and things that are worn costumes in the show that by people who probably shouldn't, etc., etc. But the story itself always moves me every time. I just get great joy watching it. And I think it is such an interesting parallel to what's happening right now in conservative politics, where right now in conservative politics, there's a lot of politicians who are calling drag queens pedophiles and who then are having scandals themselves. Some of them even being exposed as pedophiles. It's never the drag queens. It always seems to be the right-wing people in the States who are being exposed. And so something like that, where in this play, film / movie, that sort of premise of that scandal around the politician, and specifically in the movie adaptation, where it's the politician who, is in a scandal with an underage sex worker.
No, his partner, Sandra Keeley. It's Sandra Keeley is Gene Hackman, and his partner.
Yes, it's his partner for the Coalition of Moral Order, who dies in the bed of an underaged
black
teenage black sex worker. Yeah, so it's like that scandal is so relevant to right now, what's happening in politics. So it was kind of neat to rewatch it and cringe at some parts, but then seeing how much is just still relevant today, it was fantastic to rewatch.
Yeah. Agreed. Graeme?
I can pretty much echo everything Logan just said, but it was refreshing to go back and see it now that I've completed a master's and a theater degree and done all this reading into queer theory and the political and like implications of art. And like, again, were there some problematic costumes worn? Absolutely. Were the casting choices the best, not only for like identity, but also sexuality? Yes. But in terms of the relevance of the story being told and in terms of what it depicts in terms of a queer relationship, which I would say is fairly healthy. And like, we can debate that if, later if we want, but like, I view it as a pretty healthy depiction of a queer relationship. I also like that we've kind of flipped the traditional film structure on its head a little bit, in that normally you would think that you start with the very like straight-laced ordinary family, which in this case is the Keeleys, that then get their world invaded by the kooky, strange characters, where we then, like comedic structure, the world begins in order and devolves into disorder. And then we get back to order at the end, which is, the kind of double-edged sword of art, and that you can depict something as being radically different, but also still acceptable. But then at the end of the story, we still have to go back to Kansas. We still have to leave the world and go back to the way things were, because of course order has to be restored, right? But I love that we have this colorful cast of characters who we feel are being invaded by the like stick in the mud Keeleys, who are just walking contradictions. I love Diane Weiss talking about Senator Jackson and how, like, in the first scene you see, they're talking about how it was such a good decision to side with Senator Jackson instead
over
of
Bob Dole.
over Bob Dole, and how like how they're like this, they're together, this coalition for moral order. But then the very next scene alone. We'll get into it. I could rant because it is very topical right now. There are more anti-queer bills presented right now than there were back in like 1969, and it just blows my mind. But then she turns around and is like, "Oh, surely they don't judge us for associating with Senator Jackson. We had nothing to do with him socially. Like, he was a common redneck." Like, to switch between the two scenes, I cackled because it's so. What I love about the Keeley storyline in general is how constructed the political world is, and how everything is publicist, and how the narrative is always swung a certain way. Exactly, it's about the spin, and it's really shown and both sides are showing how it's about the spin and trying to weave their own narrative. And so I really love that amidst all of this chaos, we are seeing a story that is ultimately about love and acceptance. And that, while I still think there are some elements of this piece that make it a bit of a problem play, and by that I just mean a story where the narrative thrust is driven by intolerance and discrimination. If you were to remove homophobia from the world of the story, there is no story, because it's like, then it's just a drama of meeting the parents, and that's a very different story than what the Birdcage tells. Because while it is a meeting the parents story, it's all like, oh, we have to change the way we are because these straight conservative in-laws are coming to visit. So it's a story about homophobia and the dichotomy between homosexual and heterosexual life. And if you were to remove homophobia, the story would kind of be like, well, it's lost that edge. It can still
lose some.
Yes. So is it a problem play? Yes. But does it end better than most? Yes. If anyone knows the Children's Hour, I could go on endlessly about that play and how bad. Oh, I've written so many papers on that play. So there, I'll end there.
No, I mean, once again, I'm going to echo everybody where this film is of a time, 1996, where our views on certain casting and costume choices were very different from our 2023 lens.
Very, very different. Yeah.
But at the same time, as you pointed out, the story is still extremely topical. And I think Mike Nichols has done a beautiful job of creating a very timeless story using a very well-trodden trope of meet the in-laws and giving it a very timeless message. Because as much as we would all love for there to be no homophobia. Everybody accepts that in the world. It's still, unfortunately, as Graeme pointed out, there's more bills today than there were in '69. So the fact that this is still such a hot topic says right there that maybe we haven't come as far as we would have liked in over 2 decades. So it's one of those tragic. It's a sad thing, but it's also, this is as Graeme and I talked about with Company, a comedy is a great subversive way to get in a very dramatic message without making the audience feel like they're being bashed over the head and made to feel bad. Because nowadays we have to be conscious of people's guilt, apparently. We're talking about topics in history. Don't get me started on that. It's a conversation there.
I feel like we all have things that we should just not get wound up about.
No. The goal is focus on this very good film. I will say Mike Nichols did a much better job in his version of balancing out the couples. Like if you watch Le Cage or the play, it's much more focused on the Albert and Armand partnership, and then it's kind of like the other parents just show up and the dinner unfolds the way it does. But here, what made it great is because they're so balanced, you can see that the couples actually mirror each other, where Robin Williams and Diane Weist's characters are kind of the grounded, tactile, plotting ones, while Nathan Lane and Gene Hackman's characters are much more of the dramatic, overly dramatic, kind of a little bit self-centered, self-focused characters who kind of need to be grounded by their partner. So once again, it shows that no matter what the dynamic or who you choose to love, there are still very similar partnerships in the world. Like, it doesn't matter who your partner is, there's always going to be a similar dynamic. There's always,
it's very like type A, type B, right brain, left brain.
Exactly. And it's one of those things, it doesn't matter who your partner is, it's just, people connect on that. And that's the whole joke, is when Gene Hackman is falling infatuately enthralled with Nathan Lane because he thinks she's a woman, but it's like, no, they're actually connecting on similar values with each other. So it's one of those things where, that's the joy of this piece. So I do like Mike Nichols doing that and giving both couples the balance and showing that they're both flawed, non-perfect couples, And there's one line in Le Cage that I'm glad didn't make it into this, which is where after Albin and George have revealed the truth, and everybody's kind of stuck in the room, and we find out there's reporters outside, and Albin says, I'll help the Keeleys or whoever the other couple's name is, to escape. But he says, at Christmas, Thanksgiving, New Year's, whatever, and the guy's like, yeah. She's like, please don't come. And it's like, I was like, that one doesn't work so anymore, because that just is now spinning the intolerance of not opening the doors. The other way around, where it's like, what I like about this is at the end you have Nathan Lane taking Gene Hackman under his wing when he goes, nobody's dancing with me. I'm in a white outfit. I feel fat. I'm being left all alone. And Nathan Lane shows up and does the let's dance, and gets him out the door. And it's like, it's much more of a coalescing of, we're not going to exclude you, but I'm probably not going to be chums. We're not going to be having coffee every weekend. We're going to be friendly in-laws, though, to each other. We'll see each other at the odd Christmas or the Thanksgiving when we do a united celebration. But it's going to be one of those things of, you hope that as time goes on, maybe Senator Keeley and I think Mrs. Keeley's already pretty much on board with Robin and Nathan over there. But I hope that he softens a bit and maybe just comes to accept his in-laws for who they are and doesn't get quite befuddled by them as he does during the first reveal. But that's something there where I felt this was a much better ending for the couplings, where it wasn't so much of, okay, we had this one night together, let's never see each other again. It's like, no, we're going to see each other again. Let's, try and find common ground of, our kids both love each other. They want to be together. We're going to make it work because we love our kids. And whatever way that is, whatever dynamic that is, that will be the way it's going to go. So those are my thoughts on the film.
It definitely gives it a very positive spin.
Yes. Which I'm like, I mean, in this day and age, positive's never a bad thing. It's nice to have a bit of an optimistic outlook and go, look, it is possible to get along with people who you may not 100% all the time agree with.
Well, and it's political and pointed without being too in your face and still having that fun comedic ending. Exactly.
The wedding is one of my favorite scenes.
The wedding at the end is also the perfect little moment of you can see that they still came together,
Yes.
But there's also that commentary of like her side's like, who the hell is that? Like, are those fabulous people over there? Like,
yes. And then there's an
gonna...
extra next to that woman who looks dead.
Yeah, yes.
Because Roger just like sitting there like wide eyed.
I love it.
Like, she doesn't blink. It's a perfect extra for that.
I thought you were going to use another F word when you were like leaning up for fabulous.
Oh yeah, I was reaching for a word and then changed my mind.
Yes. I love that. Well, let's get into the main couple though, because we've talked about the film in general, but let's talk about the performances of Nathan Lane and Robin Williams as Albert and Armand. Graeme, why don't you start?
So
are they a healthy couple? Do you believe that they are a good match for each other?
See, I personally believe they are a very good match for each other. And I very much believe that these two men love each other as I watch this film. And love doesn't mean what we see in TV shows and movies now, where the queer couple seems to be this perfect couple that always gets along and they never have a bad day. And like, there are some TV shows that have definitely like sidestepped that. Like, I remember the show Please Like Me did a great job of showing some like highs and lows of queer love. And
I did enjoy that show.
Like, it was just like, it showed a lot of different types of relationships and great examples all around. But a lot of queer love stories are either like right now are either like it's all happy or it's all tragedy, and there's no in between. Like I think about in the show Elite, the queer couples are either like super like tragic, or then we hit some really happy periods where it almost seems like nothing is going wrong, other than like the drama around. But the couple itself is healthy. But whereas with Albert and Armand, they make fun of each other. They sometimes disagree. They have full-on fights. They yell and scream at each other, and it's kind of done in a comedic way. But those things happen for queer relationships the same way they happen for straight relationships. And I like that there is still this moment of like, okay, we may be separate in like what we're feeling right now, but we always come back together and we always like make up, and I still choose you at the end of the day. So I find that to be a very healthy depiction of intimacy in general, that you don't have to be serious all the time, and you don't have to be, I lost my train of thought, but point being is also, I think that, yes, these are two master comedians who are just kind of flexing and like in their own specific way, bringing their own character to these roles. So in a way, these very much are depicting the characters, but the characters and the actor are so close that I'm just like, yeah, it's just Robin Williams being incredible, because Robin Williams is like an entity in and of himself, and Nathan Lane is very similar. These two are just playing themselves in a heightened state on screen, and there are so many quotable quotes that come from this couple, like so many moments that I'm like, yeah, I remember that line, I make you short.
That is one of my favorite lines in the entire movie.
Like, don't give me that tone that that says you know everything because you're a man and I know nothing because I'm a woman. You're not a woman. Oh, you bastard.
It's just so quotable.
So should you be carrying the crucifix? It is the prop for martyrs.
Like, there's never a moment where they aren't willing to like take the piss on one another, but then kissing makeup like literally the next moment. So I'm never worried that this couple's going to break up, like ever during the course of the film. There are moments that make me incredibly sad in this film, but we'll get to that a little later. But this couple, not one of them, because they're just a riot.
Yeah. Logan?
I'm like basically ditto for everything Graeme says. I feel like this is going to be a quick podcast because most of what everybody's saying, it's like, yes, we get it. Agreed. But like, I think they're the perfect couple? No, but I like it because they're a very human couple. They're just very much people who as well clearly love each other to the point where like they get each other. Like, Robin Williams' character, not Albert. Oh my God, I almost called him Albert. Armand, thank you.
Armand Goldman.
Armand Goldman. His character just stabilizes Nathan Lane's character so well. Like just, they really balance each other out, which I really love. And you can tell that sure, they're still figuring things out as they go, but like Albert never needed to take Hal's the son's name, right?
Val.
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 Why am I
Val.
thinking Hal? It's not 2001: The Space Odyssey. That's a very different movie. He doesn't need to take Val on in his life, but chooses to because of how much he loves his father. You know, like there's a lot of chosen family aspects to this, as much as there's heartbreak to the movie as well, and to the plot as well. There's just a lot of positive support there, I find, and choosing each other through thick and thin in a healthy way. You know, there's the horribly, almost soul-crushing moment where Armand says something in the lines of, and I'm going to paraphrase, you know, he's my companion and my friend. So I basically I'm choosing him because he's my companion and my friend. Like, it's just so sincere. He never needs to say he's my lover or my partner or my husband. It's just, this is the person who is my companion and my chosen family. And I just think they have very sweet moments, and they understand each other's eccentricities and see each other's eccentricities as they are without judgment, I think. Like, obviously, there's moments where you're like, oh, LOL, he's indulging the other one. But you can see that they support each other throughout the film.
Yeah, I mean, when I watch these two, I automatically see the template that the Modern Family writers took for Mitch and Cam.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's so much in there, like in that duo that you can go back, trace them back to the 1996 Nathan Lane, Robin Williams. For sure, they are the template for, you know, the kind of what we would deem as like kind of like the modern interpretation of a coupling, right? Where, like, you know, they're not perfect. Mm-hmm. They're quippy with each other, you know, they kind of bicker back and forth, but deep down, they have a love. And I will say Robin Williams in this is really the standout performance because he plays it so grounded, and he really plays the love of this. Like, the palimony scene on the bench is the scene where I go, this is the, I don't know, did Good Will Hunting come before or after this? I think it comes after.
I think it comes after, yeah.
Yeah, but this is like the early things of, you know, Robin Williams can do drama when he wants to. Like, when he is talking about giving up his gravesite in Los Copa to come down to wherever his gravesite is, like, it's a marriage, because back then there was no gay marriage, you know, it wasn't what it is today. So a palimony was as close as people got, which is tragic. But Nathan Lane and Robin Williams really do play the sincerity of that couple, where, you know, where like Nathan Lane is so hurt that Val doesn't want him at the dinner. It says, can't I be like Val's Uncle Al? And you see Nathan Lane's heart break for this moment, and goes, well, of course you're going to be Uncle Al. Fuck him. We'll figure it out, you know? And then even then when like Nathan Lane's being forced to dress in a suit, something that like Nathan Lane looks great in that suit, but he plays the uncomfortability and the tragedy of that moment so well. And
one of my favorite lines is in that moment where he's like, like, you're all thinking, looking like this, I'm even more obvious, which made me write down, like, in all caps in my notes, damned if you do, damned if you don't.
Exactly.
Very that.
Then, of course, with the pink socks, right? And Robin Williams is like, what about those? He goes, well, somebody wants a splash of color. But, you know, it's one of those things where it's just the tragedy that Nathan Lane is trying so hard to be accepted into this. And Robin Williams,
you feel the heartbreak.
You feel the heartbreak because and Robin Williams, when he says, like, I spent years hiding who I was, I have no desire to go and do this again. But then because
at the end
Robin
of it all,
Williams
there's powerful messages.
Yeah, exactly. Like, Robin Williams just nails it, and Robin Williams was straight, but he played the heart of the character.
I was just going to say that if I had one issue with the film, it's the fact that he's straight. Not because he does anything wrong, but because, you know, a role like that really should have been played by an LGBTQ human. But that is my only critique of him playing that role at all. I find he finds the heart, he portrays love. There's not a moment where I don't believe that Albert and Armand are not in love. You know what I mean? Like, they connect in such an amazingly impactful way that I almost forgive the fact that, no, I do forgive the fact that he is not LGBTQ.
Yeah, like I've never been like, oh, they should have recast the role. Because like, mind you, if Robin Williams had played it overly flamboyant and caricaturish, like Hank Azaria,
which he doesn't go into.
Yeah, and he doesn't. And I go, that's where I'm like, if you can play the role and play it with sincerity and honesty and truth, and bring the global truth of this is a loving couple, and play that with heart and honesty, then I'll cast you in the role, because, you know, it's just like, play the part with honesty and truth, and I will support your casting. If you come in playing it as a caricature, then I will have a problem with you and will say this was a bad casting choice.
Now, if they redid the movie today, I would say cast someone who is queer.
Yeah, of course.
Like 110%.
Yeah.
But for the time
200%.
I get it, because they did also cast Nathan Lane, who is a gay man.
Yes. Well, I mean, one of the greatest stories that came out of this movie that shows just how good Nathan Lane and Robin Williams were on and off the camera were they were doing an interview on Oprah, and Oprah was leaning heavily into Nathan Lane, trying to get him to basically come out, because she was asking, well, how did you well, how were you so good at, you know, playing Albert? Like, how did you play the cross-dressing so well? Not a great moment for Oprah, let's just say.
Oh, gosh.
And Nathan Lane was very clear to Robin Williams. He's like, I'm gay, but I don't want to come out publicly. Like, I'm not at that spot yet. And Robin Williams saw where this interview was going and immediately did a kooky voice thing and diverted Oprah completely and spun the interview in an entirely different way.
He really was a gem of a human.
Yeah, and saved Nathan Lane in that moment from being forced to come out when he wasn't ready. And so that's where I go, that's true partner love on and off camera, where these guys formed a true partnership with each other. And, you know, like when Nathan Lane spoke glowingly when like Robin Williams passed away and they interviewed him about it. Like, he came out and just had the most beautiful things to say. And he said, he was my friend. He was someone who, you know, I kept in touch with throughout the years. Someone who I love dearly. So for them, are they like the perfect couple? No, but I'm like, I wouldn't want a perfect couple. I want somebody with a bit of bite, with a bit of bickering, with a bit of unevenness to it, because that's life. They're not a perfect. No couple is perfect. You know, they're.
I think that's something just to qualify what I said, is that they're a very healthy couple. Healthy doesn't mean perfect. Like,
exactly.
Again, media right now likes to depict that if you are in a healthy relationship, you two agree on everything, you never fight, and that's just not true.
No. Because you're not fighting, I question how good a relationship you have. Because that means somebody's always compromising and is not being honest.
Yeah, it's that's why I call them a very healthy couple, because like, are they perfect? No, but do they love each other and do they commit to one another? And
100%.
Like no one doubts that the entire film long.
Yeah, they are very much together and in love and just kind to each other. Like, they hold space for each other. Yes. And I think that's why I like that couple.
I do. That's exactly it. But it's not just them in the cast. As we said, this is a star-studded cast. So what are our thoughts on the rest of the cast? Was there anybody who stood out to you cast-wise? Logan, what are your thoughts?
I really liked the journey of, oh my God, her dad's name.
Gene Hackman?
Gene Hackman, yeah. I loved I love how he portrayed the journey of his character. Yeah, Kevin Keeley there. And it's that he goes from being so homophobic and problematic to just the shock on his face.
It's the best when confused Gene Hackman ever.
Yeah, when the whole reveal happens of Albert being like a drag queen and not actually the mom, and Christine Baranski popping in. Like the cameo of a lifetime. I love her so much. So much. And that sort of,
but you can't be Jewish.
I was just going to say, that line is, I'm like, yo, I love that that's the first thing that came out of his mouth.
Yeah, and this in a moment of, and that's what I love about it, is in a moment of total shock, the thing that comes out of his mouth is completely not what anyone thinks is going to happen. And honestly, I forgot that the first thing he says is, but you can't be Jewish, until I was rewatching it. It was one of those little tidbits that just like blasted me in the head. It was just like oh my God, that's brilliant timing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Especially because everybody's like, you can't, you know, you think he's going to say, well, you can't be a man. It's like, oh, well, you can't be Jewish. Like, I would say for me, just that, the journey he takes you on, outside of the Nathan Lane, Robin Williams, I would say he's my like biggest standout. But just the couple there, both Keeleys are just, again, a couple who, while their fundamental ideals are not correct, I'll just say it, they're not correct. They're discriminatory, they're problematic, they're racist, they're, homophobic. Anti-Semitic too. Oh, Jesus Christ, very anti-Semitic. But they are very supportive of each other, and they balance each other out. So there's a certain balance you get there that is lovely. Morals aside and social opinions aside, they really do support each other and lift each other. And she anchors him. He's going off the rails thinking his political career is doomed. And she, even though
she's the Lady Macbeth of the couple.
Exactly.
She figures
Even
it
though
out.
they're in a relationship where you would think that the power was swayed the other direction. You know, he's got all the power because he's the man. There's social Christians, whatever you want to call it. But she guides the ship. Yeah. You know, and she does her best to sort of make sure everybody's okay, which is also kind of nice to it as well.
Yeah. I'll piggyback because my shout out goes to Diane Wiest as a Louise Keeley, because I mean, I grew up knowing her from Law and Order because she did a few seasons where she was the ADA for Law and Order, playing Sam Waterston's boss, basically. And you know, she is someone who does a lot of drama. She doesn't get a chance to do a lot of comedy, but she kills it in this.
But when she does, she does it well.
Because when she cuts it, I mean, she plays serious quite a bit. Like she's the grounded partner where, you know, she's coming up with Kevin, like, come on, like, we got to pull this together here. Like,
you've had enough candy.
You got enough candy.
Okay,
Kevin, don't go out the window.
I guess I love how Kevin Keeley reverts to childhood with that. It's like, I just need candy. I'm like, there's the emotional eating. Something I go all too well.
Yeah. And then I love at the dinner where she starts getting jealous of Nathan Lane getting all the attention. And that's just so funny, is watching her get more and more upset. To the point where she has her crying, does the, I just want someone to like me best. Like, the breakdown is great, and it's just so funny. And then watching her come out in like kind of like the BDSM leather cap and studs at the end, and then talking to the guy at the bar, and she drops her voice to sound more manly. It's just so good. Like,
I doubt it's a role she'd ever thought she would have played.
No, that's exactly like Gene Hackman's done comedy for, like, he did Young Frankenstein, where he plays the blind old man. You know, he had done comedy before, so it wasn't, but he kind of played broad with Lex Luthor and Superman. But he was known for doing the kind of the heavy dramas. Like
I forgot about that.
Yeah. Gene Hackman's got a really storied career where he's gone a little bit all over the map. I always forget he does comedy. Diane Wiest almost never does comedy, and so for her, I was just like, yes, like, she just so wonderfully plays the tightly wound Lady M of this couple who is formulating every plan, and then as the night deteriorates, she just keeps getting more and more anxious and upset, which is great. And I will also say an honorable shout out goes to Dan Herman as Val. I hate that character so much. He has the most punchable face ever. The smugness when he does the dad, thank you. It's like, oh my God. Could I not just sucker punch that man and break his
I know. He plays sort of asshole fairly well.
He plays the best asshole. He is the true antagonist of the film.
What I find funny is also, I know this actor, he was on a season of 24. And I remember he played an asshole in that too. And I'm like, yo, this is just young asshole Dan Fuckerman. And I could talk endlessly about that character.
Yeah. He's fascinating.
Yes, that's one word for it.
Well, fascinating and like, because like
infuriating is another one.
Like, infuriatingly fascinating, because it's like, you would think as the child who grew up with a gay couple who showed him nothing but love, you would think he would be the most open and supportive person possible. But
Yep.
he's not, and I almost wonder, is he going to end up like Senator Keeley, being like a Republican senator in like 20 years when he's like in his 40s? Like, what's going on there? Like, what happened to this character to make him want to repress his family so badly? Like did Armand and Albert show up at his college and embarrass him, and he was bullied for that? Like, what happened to him off screen that makes him the way he is?
Well, I think
I'm fascinated by that dynamic.
Like, I think just to hop on this train of thought for a moment, because I'm kind of like torn about who my answer will be, but I'll talk about Dan Futterman for a second, and that I think that he's very much, I think he's aware of the stigma, particularly at this point in time, because remember, this is 1996. Queerness was not widely discussed. Like, yes,
or
we
celebrated.
are like, oh, not at all. Like, I remember.
Well, he talks about his teacher, like his kindergarten teacher, like his dad coached him to say, like if your teacher asks what your dad does, tell him he's a businessman.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so I think it's just, as much as we hate Val, as someone who is telling his fathers that you cannot be yourselves, you have to be less of yourself. Don't kick Albert out. Don't talk or gesture or move unless you absolutely have to, because you're just too obvious. I'm like, it reads like displaying shame, and that's what really breaks my heart about the film, is just that it's such that what breaks my heart is it's completely believable. Like, it's complete. I completely believe that if I were to ever have kids, there might be circumstances where they'd be like, can you tone it down? Because there are people out there who are very much not okay with queerness. And it's kind of like when you're in a contained, accepting environment, similar to what how the world of South Beach is depicted in like the Birdcage, it's very jarring when you're suddenly reminded that the whole world is not accepting. Because it's very easy. I remember seeing a meme a couple of years ago where it's like, TV writers will always be like, yo, there can't be more than one queer person in a friend group. Meanwhile, me, a homosexual, has not seen a straight person in 3 months.
Like, 110%.
It's very true, where it's like, I will insulate with only queer people and only people who accept, love, and support me, my chosen family, one could say, which this film highlights a lot. And I want to do a big shout out to one of the very early scenes where Albert finds out that Val's getting married, when they're all in the kitchen together after the Schnecken has beckoned.
One of the best lines.
Yes.
When the Schnecken beckons.
There's a moment where Val is like drinking orange juice out of the carton, and Agador is just
Nathan
like,
Lane
hey,
says cup.
Hey, and you're like, hands the cup, and it's just such a moment of like family. Such a moment. There's such a sense of familial affection in that one scene. And so much of it is just the nonverbal stuff, the performances of all the actors. And that's why I'm going to take my answer to this question. I think I've talked about Dan Futterman. I know I'll bring up Val Goldman again before the end of this, because we have questions ahead. But I'm going to give a shout out for Hank Azaria. Because although I want to say upfront, yes, not Guatemalan, so this is problematic casting once again from the 90s. Again, different time, different beliefs, but by today's standard, not an acceptable casting choice. Like, there has to be one Guatemalan actor who can play Agador. There has to be at least one.
Does he have to be Guatemalan? I mean, Hank Azaria is
like, you can
a Jewish Italian, so it's like
honestly,
can we not just make him Jewish Italian? Like, did he have to be Guatemalan?
Right.
I think that what's always funny to me is that, do you remember the scene where Agador is cleaning the pool in a thong?
Yes.
He's just in the background. When the Birdcage screened on TV, they would like censor that.
What?
They would censor Hank Azaria out of the film because it was obscene.
I mean, to be fair, I don't know if that is Hank Azaria or if that is a Packer,
double,
but there is something swinging between his legs there in that scene. And I've
never noticed that, but now I'll have to go back and rewatch.
Oh yeah, scene. Like if you watch, I can understand a little bit why that might be censored. Not because it's a man in a thong, but if you look, there's like something whomping in his like underwear that I was like watching, and I was like, Okay.
Yeah.
But
So just like I want to point out that, yes, of course, I'm sure there was some censorship. That was just homophobia because there is an abundance of homophobia out there, unfortunately. But I did have had multiple thoughts myself of like, oh, there looks like a lot of wang swinging around. If there was something to be censored, that would be the moment.
Yeah, and that's the one moment I think that was censored in the film. But anyways, not talking about censorship. That's a whole other can of worms. We're going to talk about Hank Azaria because I think Hank Azaria, especially at the time, like the 90s was a moment where I saw Hank Azaria in a lot of films.
He was in The Simpsons.
Lots of huge character work, well known for voices, well known for. So I can see why Hank Azaria was a natural choice for the role of Agador. Again, at the time, talking about from the lens of a 90s casting director, it's like, yo, someone who's famous for doing zany characters, which honestly, good character actors are always in demand. So if you are a character actor listening to this or watching this, you are appreciating. I'm a character actor. I would much rather play the big over-the-top character that ultimately steals the show.
Yep, I agree.
Instead of like when I was in Hairspray, I played Edna. And I would have no other way because that's the role I wanted to play. If I'm in, when I was in Footloose, and these was all like community theater, I was the Reverend. And that is a different kind of character acting. But both Gene Hackman and Hank Azaria are both playing a very over-the-top character in this film. And to me, like, I think that his talent of, like, first of all, maintaining the voice the entire time. Because there are some movies I've seen.
Good evening. I got those Spartacus.
It's just, he's just such a good physical humor presence. And when he's dancing to Gloria Estefan, like near the very beginning, it's just such a like, that's the character. It sets the character so well, and you don't have to say anything. No
Purine tablets.
Nothing else. Oh, it's just aspirin with the A and the S scraped off.
Oh God, that's brilliant. Yeah, I know.
Like he has great comedic timing. Like him just doing like one of the best scenes of the whole movie is him, Robin Williams, and Dan Futterman in the kitchen, where like he's trying to do the soup.
Yes.
You got Dan Futterman trying to get out the door to put the note up for Katherine, the mom, or like Christine Baranski's character, and and Agador's melting down in the kitchen because he only made the horrible pesto. Sweet and spicy.
Sweet and sour peasant soup.
Exactly.
Like he made up.
I made it up.
But
right? And the whole thing of Robin Williams doing the shut up. And they're falling. And it's just like the comedic timing of that scene is something that is so hard.
Chaos.
It's very
like, organized chaos.
It's reminding me of like very old comedy. Like I'm thinking about like I Love Lucy and
like a lot
of Three Stooges.
Very vaudeville, very
Tuck the shrimp. As in he just
what I love is we pair that scene up with the dinner scene that is so like quiet. And the moment where they all take a little bit of soup and then all reach for the bread in unison.
The comedic timing within every aspect of it is so good.
It's just
so good.
I think that Hank Azaria brings that kind of physical humor and over-the-top characterization to the role. So, although I disagree
tripping coming
with
to the door,
yes,
because he has to wear shoes. One of the best pratfalls ever.
I think my shout out will be Hank Azaria.
I agree.
With my caveats and fine print, still Hank Azaria.
Yes,
because I honestly I can't give it to Dan Futterman. He's got too much of a punchable face, and Callista Flockhart is not in it enough and kind of doesn't give enough for me to really.
She's funny when she does have her moments.
Yeah, she's funny. She's present, and she's everything that the role is requiring of her. And in a modern adaptation, I'd almost want Barbara to have more of a role in the story, because in this, she's kind of just the Juliet who's kind of
she's there.
Yeah. Her best scene is that first scene
she's just there
with her on the phone, where she's doing the whole. Like, well, has he been tested? Yes, and I've been tested. Like, that first dynamic of her and her parents is her best scene because she has the most to do. But the rest of the movie, she's kind of always stuck at the background, reacting to situations.
Which is unfortunate because she does do a good job.
She does a great job.
If anyone knows the I think it was early 2000s film version of Midsummer Night's Dream that has Callista Flockhart as Helena.
Oh.
She is incredible. It's like Stanley Tucci as Puck.
Yeah.
Oh, dang. Okay.
Okay,
I
yes,
have to
I've
watch
seen
that.
this one.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's such, she is the reason I love Helena as a character, because she did such a good job of like the moment where she's realizing that she can like get Demetrius, maybe she's walking a bike through the rain, and then the crazed look in her eyes, she's like, oh, I'll tell Demetrius if they're playing. And then like it's just such a moment, and I'm like, oh, bitch is crazy, but you know what, Helena, we've all been there.
Listen,
She
I
does a
will
good job.
say, Kate Winslet, Calista Flockhart were both my young childhood crushes from back in the 90s, man.
Oh,
Like, both of them
Yeah.
stunning people, stunning actresses. So
Yes.
we are just like,
Yeah.
damn, okay, I'm hooked on both of you. You're fantastic. So, but yes, definitely would need more to do. I mean, even like in Lacage, the role of the daughter is very downplayed. She doesn't show up till Act 2 when the family shows up, which is weird because we get a song all about her with Anne on My Arm, but we don't get to meet Anne until Act 2. So there's a problem with that storyline there. Where we definitely need more of Anne or Barbara.
Well, and just like
Whoever
you
the
brought
partner
up,
is.
she's even more fleshed out in the Birdcage, and yet I would agree as well. Like so all three of us agree, she still does not get enough screen time as a character, or enough fleshed outness to her character.
Agreed.
And that's also why I don't really shout out Christine Baranski, much as I love her, much as I think she did a great job. She is also the cameo role.
Yeah.
And I will not shout out a cameo role, just because, again, she's on the screen for maybe 5 minutes the entire movie.
It's a fun 5 minutes.
Fun 5 minutes. But I think that we can, I'm happy with my choice to bring up some issues and talk about what was good.
Exactly. I love that. And let's get into our favorite production element or design element of the show or the film. And I mean, I'll start this one because I will say for me, my favorite is the costume design for this. And unfortunately, I don't know the name of the person who did the costumes. I'm looking on Wikipedia, and I couldn't find them.
Oh, okay.
Which is too bad. So, but I will say for just the fact that this film was so well designed, costumes.
It's Anne Roth.
Anne Roth, thank you. Anne Roth, you were fantastic because first of all, you have to do all the stage costumes for all the drag performers. And Nathan Lane doing like the Judy Garland look, the tramp look, kind of like the Norma Desmond design look. All that, like all the costumes for the drag show are just stunning. But then
I know she did a good job.
She did so good. But then you also go into the real world, there's situations where you got to cover a whole wide spectrum of the journey these characters go on, where you see Albert in his natural daytime pink, kind of that bubblegum pinky or pastel pink attire when he's going through the market. And you have Armand in that kind of that like 90s Versace look with like the open shirt with the undershirt look going. And then you have Gene Hackman, who looks like your stereotypical senator with Diane Weiss, who I guarantee was modeled off of Hillary Clinton, because this was mid 90s.
Oh, definitely.
Like just looking at that background image of her there, she looks like Hillary Clinton in this. So
kind of, yeah.
Yeah, like she got the hair, she's got that wide-shouldered, kind of straight cut look to her. Even Val is dressed completely differently from his parents, where he's Northern prep school look with like the golf shirt, the pant, like kind of like the nicely pressed pants. He's very well put together, that type of thing there. And then even Hank Azaria with kind of like that zany, where he has to go from like in that ill-fitting servant uniform to like his natural Speedo short look. Like just the journey you have to, and then you have to dress Gene Hackman and Diane Weiss up in drag. Yes, it's just funny and just fun. It's just so good. Yeah, and so Anne Roth just such a fantastic job tying all these characters together and really letting you know who they are. And even as we talked about that scene where Nathan Lane comes out in the suit with the pink socks and making him look so good, but yet also so uncomfortable. And the same thing with like Robin Williams in his suit, which makes it look like it was one of his dad's like suits. I guess
I look like my grandfather in this suit.
Yeah.
He killed himself when he was 30.
Yeah.
Like it's just perfect. Like just these costumes tell you so much about who these characters are. It's just so fun and tells you about the world and everything that's being lived in. It's just perfectly well-crafted costume design, because costumes are telling so much about the story of who these people are before you even hear them talk. You know exactly what's going on with them.
100%.
So it's great. Yeah. So Logan, what about you?
I'm like, again, not to repeat what we've said earlier, but like ditto to all that. There's a lot of the design components between the Keeleys and the drag family, we'll say. The Goldmans and the Keeleys, where it's like even the way the glimpses we get inside the Keeley's house tends to be a little bit darker. Things are a little bit more basic, a little bit more, to quote the mother, severe. You know, like they're compared to everything at the Goldmans, which is over the top and beautiful and artistic and everything's kind of unique. That sort of juxtaposition I really enjoyed between the two. And that goes right down to, just like you said, their costumes. Like Albert, who is the, you could argue is the quote unquote housewife of it, because she plays the role as that, is in brighter colors. Even when she comes out as fake Mrs. Coleman, she is still in pink, where the other mother is in
Louise.
Darker colors. Louise is in darker colors. It's, these costumes I find are like everything is so mirrored. Where one is more froofy and colorful, the other one is more severe and has more lines to it. Even in their houses, the designs are just unique and different, and I kind of love that about the sort of tech aspects of the show.
Yeah, I love that. Graeme?
So, oh my gosh, movie.
So mine is almost, to me, no surprise that I'm thinking of the lighting. I adore the way that the different worlds are lit. So when we're in the Keeleys, it's dark, it's austere, everything's very like neutral colors and dimly lit. And then we get to South Beach and it's sunshine, fluorescent. The lighting has a kind of like, it shimmers on the water and it glares into the camera. It's a very gaudy world in South Beach. And you get that right from the very first shot, where we're coming in over the water and we're going in and we're seeing the club. But as we get to the club, we're passing by people in bikinis going by and all these Jeeps and all this flesh and all this decadence. And then we get into we see the neon lights of the Birdcage, which I think they dressed up the Hotel Carlisle of South Beach really, really well. And then we get into it and the club is dim, but there's still that fluorescence to it. And every scene that takes place in South Beach, I'm thinking about the scene where they're piercing the toast and like learning about in La Cage.
I pierced the toast.
In La Cage, that would be masculinity. The song.
Yes.
So
like
fun.
that scene is such a vibrant
and roar like a tiger. So good.
It's just so the lighting can be really sex how these two families live in very different worlds. And so it makes it aware that we are colliding together. And so and also the scene at the end, like the whole dinner sequence is so very funny because it's the first time you're seeing the Goldmans in this dark austere lighting. But even then we're choosing like to still have a kind of like reddish tinge to things. And there is still color. It's different colors, but there's still color, but it's all dark. So it's like these two families are now mixing. And we're clear that the color is present but muted. But choosing those like dark red colors and dark yellows are just kind of like taking everything of South Beach and muting it down to the Keeleys level. Because it's like the Goldmans are trying to suppress themselves for the Keeleys level. And that's what I get out of the lighting. Just the lighting choices alone. And so that's always what I thought of when I was watching it. I'm like, damn, the lighting designer did a great job.
They did.
Ditto again.
And like the more of these roundtables I'm on, the more I'm just like, it's always lighting that I go to.
Lighting is key. If you can't, I mean, nowadays the amount of conversations that are had about why are films and television shows so bloody dark?
Yes.
You can't see half the shit that's going on. I mean, House of the Dragon, there's a whole hot, sexy beach scene that's very incestuous and creepy in a whole other way. But, it's supposed to be this big romantic, climactic moment on the beach.
I'm sure they got climactic on the beach.
But it's like a whole scene where it's like, okay, so what's happening? It's so dark. I can't see what's happening. Or, season 8 of Game of Thrones, where, it's the big climactic battle at Winterfell. And half the time people are like, okay, who happened? What died? Like, can't tell because you made it so bloody dark. It's just
it is
bad.
a trend right now in anything for more serious shows. I find it's like, let's make it dark so we know it's serious.
Yeah.
But I'm like, it doesn't matter if you can't see what's going on. You're not interested either way.
Yeah. Some of the best films, like Mississippi Burning, also starring Gene Hackman, is not like it's a dark story, but there are scenes that are very well lit. Like that opening murder scene with the civil rights activists in the car. That is not done in the pitch black. The whole point is shine the light on the horribleness that is going on around. You know, we're not going to hide it in the background.
Yeah.
You know? So, yeah. All right. Let's get into a deeper question here, which is in this adaptation, the screenwriter, Elaine May, chose to include the biological mother of Val, Katherine Archer, played by the wonderful Christine Baranski. In other versions of this piece, this is usually an unseen character. Like in La Cage, make mention of let's invite mom. She calls and says she's not coming. And that's kind of it for her role in the story. But in this case, she, as we said, she gets a cameo, extended cameo appearance. And it helps out in the climax by driving the getaway car for the Keeleys. So what did her physical presence add to the film? Do you feel it was a necessary thing to include her in the story? Graeme, since you seem to have some thoughts on Christine Baranski, where do you stand on her inclusion in the film?
So this is going to seem like a bit of a stretch, but I think that her inclusion in the film is absolutely necessary because it makes the film feel more cinematic. And this, again, like, hang with me for a second, because this is going to take some mental gymnastics. I did stretch before this.
I'm already with you, so we're good.
Because when you have a play, and you're writing for the stage, as I'm sure everyone in this little room, this little Zoom room has done, you don't want to add characters on stage that don't need to be there.
Yes.
You don't want to have, you don't want to, like, this is the, like, shitty part of the industry, but you don't want to pay an actor if you don't have to, especially when you're young and you're new in your career and you're trying to get a play staged. I don't want to have an actor who's just going to sit there and be a part of the set, essentially.
Yep.
We're no longer in high school theater where we just want to include everyone. No, it's like, let's do a one-person show because it's easy, and I will write it and perform it myself,
and produce it, and costume
and
design,
produce it,
and
and you know what? I might as well direct it. All me. And I think that in previous versions, it's fine to have, like, I love having a character that is referenced but never seen. I had one in my own thesis play that was mentioned a couple of times. We never see Aunt Fiona. We just talk about her. And I think about other like the TV show Frasier, the role of Maris. We never see Maris, but we talk about her every season of the show, never seeing. And it's almost, and in Will and Grace, there was Stan. We never see Stan. And I like having characters who you never see, but you can create this very complex lore around them, because the more you create, the harder it will be to cast. How are you going to cast these people after you've been like, Stan is supposed to be this mounting of a man, and like Karen keeps throwing little things every episode about things Stan has done or said or eaten or things. And same with Maris. How do you find this woman who is fix every detail? You can't. So I love having characters that are talked about but not there, because it creates a rich world. But when you're trying to go from theater to film, I want it to feel like a film. I don't want to feel like it is just the stage.
You don't want to feel like a play being done on stage.
Because usually plays on stage can hold your attention better, because there's the element of liveness that kind of finesses the audience's attention span, helps the suspension of disbelief. And don't get me wrong, there have been some great films that have captured theatricality. I think about The Humans, Carnage, and August Osage County. All of these kind of capture the theatricality of their source material while also being a film. But they also add the cinematic quality to it, of being able to move from room to room, being able to capture moments that seem like they're impromptu, seem like it's just something you're seeing through the crack of a door, like you're a little witness. But in this world where we're creating a film version of something that has been a play, then a movie, then a musical now, we're leaning back into musical theater, because in musical theater structure, you want to move through a lot of set pieces. And one, like, let's reference Hairspray again. Welcome to the 60s goes between like 4 or 5 sets over the course of like a 6-minute song.
Yeah.
And that's how fast musical theater goes, and that's how fast film should go. And I feel like it's also reference the producers, and We Can Do It.
They do a really good job.
In the film, in the musical, it's just Max Bialystok's office, and they just are singing in the office. And it's like, okay, that's fine for a musical, for on stage, but on film, we're going into the street, then we're going into the taxi, then we're passing by
Central
people. We're in Central Park, and it makes it funnier that Max Bialystok is still there when we come back scenes later. So it makes it that much funnier because we capitalize on the ability for the camera to move. We can take the audience with us and take us on a journey. So the fact that we go and see Katherine and we see Katherine in the film helps to make this film feel more like a film and less like a play that became a film that became a musical that is now a film again.
Yeah. Love that. Logan?
Where I'm at with that too is very much, again, I hate to repeat myself, but same, ditto, whatever. But I also, the way I look at it is what makes an interesting story for me, regardless of what kind of story it is the stakes. I need the stakes to be high. And if you're going to add in a character who wasn't there from a previous adaptation, sort of similar to what Graeme says, you need them to have sort of purpose and whatnot, is I need them to elevate the stakes. And having the mom character exist in this adaptation really does elevate the stakes. And the moment where you feel that most tension is when she's leaving the voicemail on their while the dinner's sort of happening, while they're waiting, and the Keeleys are there, and you see both Armand, and this is before
Val.
Albert comes out. You see Val and Armand both physically have a reaction as they realize, oh shit.
Because she mentions Albert's name.
Yeah, if the Keeleys hear this, we're screwed.
Yes.
And so it's that whole scene where that tension is just bubbling there. And that would not happen if Christine Baranski's character was not in it. If they didn't include Mom, we would lose that sort of forward nervousness that every single one of those characters feels in that moment. And it's such a delicious moment. And it's fun because we do get to show what I'm going to say is the conservative characters here as being just so ignorant to what's happening around them, because they're so willing to believe the facade that's in front of them, because there is not a single moment in their brains where they go, these are two men.
Yeah.
You know
the best thing
like,
is Gene Hackman during that whole voicemail is doing his driving story. Yes. And I saw the trees, and the trees were changing color. And it's the most boring story. I think they would pick up on the voicemail playing in the background.
Tension just builds to a juicy moment there. And that's why I love it. I love it.
Gene Hackman's story, it makes me think of bag poetry reading.
Oh, yes. Yeah. Oh, so yes. Oh, very yes.
Yeah. I'll say for me, I'm a bit more mixed on Christine Baranski in this. And
well, how dare you? You're wrong.
Go wash your mouth out right now.
Don't be wrong. I love Christine Baranski.
I just don't believe
she steals the show in Mamma Mia all the way as not Rosie, not Donna, Tanya. She plays Tanya.
Oh, I know. Her as Tanya is delicious.
It's great.
Love her.
But for me, I don't know what Elaine May was going for with this character, because in the first scene we meet her in, she starts flirting and undressing Armand on the couch and gives our Albert a look when he bursts into the office of, what are you going to do about me flirting with your man on the couch here? And he's not saying no to this moment because they're drinking the champagne, they're dancing, they're singing together. He's lifting her. She's undoing his shirt. And I'm like, is she supposed to be an antagonist of the story? Or is she supposed to be this
she is introduced with a little bit of that. Yeah.
She has that antagonist energy because she's clearly set up to be the foil to Albert. And it's like, I think what would have been better is if she shows up anyway, even after getting the message, because she so badly wants to be there for Val that even after she's told don't come, she's like, well, fuck it, I'm still going to come because this is my time to, be there for my child. And then versus making her, because it's such a 180 flip where she goes from being antagonistic toward Albert by hitting on Armand in the office to then showing up in the house and automatically just being like, happy Dory, like, I'll accept whatever Val says about me, you know.
Yeah.
And even then when she leaves the voicemail, because she does the Val Armand, oh hell, Albert, are you there? Like, even in the voicemail, she's condescending to Albert. So I'm like, there's such a weird character flip that I feel like we're missing a character beat for her, and I think that's more down to Elaine May not plotting her out properly enough to give her the proper turn where she's going to be a supportive.
Yeah, she really does
She does a weird 180 where I'm like, is she the antagonist? Is she like, what is she supposed to be in this story?
The way I always
it's very
interpreted
confusing.
that is that she just slipped into their old roles, right? Like last time they were really together,
but she knows
pregnant
he's
with
gay.
the baby.
Yeah, she knows that he's gay and is with Albert, because she acknowledges that, are you still with Albert? Yes, he's in the waiting room. Like Armand sets it up that, like, no, I'm still with Albert, I'm still gay. So, like, why is she boozing him up? Why is she undressing him and playing with his chest hair? Like, what's the game she's playing here? Like, it's a very weirdly directed moment of the piece where I'm like, just have, like, if you're gonna have the scene, have her say yes, and maybe, you know, have Albert burst in on them as she's popping the cork in a very masculine way between her legs.
Yeah,
you know? Like, the scene just goes on a bit too long, and it makes me go, what was your intention with this character? What is she supposed to be playing with here?
I think, like, part of what I see of the role of Christine Baranski or Katherine in the film is almost to push towards that palimony scene, because we have to set up this moment of a make or break for Armand and Albert, and going back
the palimony scene doesn't come next. Albert drives back to the house to get his toothbrush.
Yes,
then he leaves. Then Robin Williams goes with the palimony agreement.
But is also very upset from what happened with Katherine.
Yeah,
true.
So I think that it was largely, yes, I think that Katherine is used as a bit of a plot device to, first of all, drive the stakes up for that final scene, which again I think is flawlessly executed in terms of, like, we're tightening the screws and we're feeling the tension build, and it's only going to increase over dinner. And she also drives tension for the main couple of this. She is the old lover in a way coming into the picture. Like, in their love story, she's the old flame who walks back in, and suddenly there are doubts raised in one or both of the characters' minds. Now, I don't think there was any doubt in Armand's mind, but with Albert's clearly, after all the shit that Val is saying and all the, like, the stress of the whole, like, building up to the dinner, Albert's feeling very insecure, and Albert's feeling very much like, I need my companion and my friend to be there for me, and he's off drinking champagne and, like, flirting with the woman who bore the child and then has not been in Val's life for his entire life. I've been mom. I am mom. Why are we even here in the first place? Like, remember when Robin Williams brings up going to, like, we could ask mom, Albert's like, what? Like, he's taken aback at this suggestion. So I think that her role is really to drive that tension. But I think that what I agree with you is that it could have been done in a different way. It could have been a little less overtly sexualized. It could be something that maybe Albert walks in, and because of all the stress, he interprets something that's so small, like a hug.
Or even have him come in and hear Armand saying, like, I'm the mom and Albert's practically a boob. Like, or a breast, or he calls him a breast.
Yeah.
Like, you know, have them come in because Albert has the line of, you probably were laughing at me in the office with Katherine. Like, cut the scene there, like, have him burst in just as they're talking about Albert being the breast and them cackling and cheersing the wine together. That night there is enough to set Albert off versus having them do the song and dance and undressing the shirt routine. Like, I guess it's just a very confusing directed moment.
The way I kind of look at it, though, is that Armand, I don't think because he doesn't say no. Yeah. I've always kind of looked at it as a tactic thing from Armand's side of things, like make her reminisce.
Yes.
Feel like she wants to.
Courting her to come back.
Which is kind of why he tries to, like, deter Albert from coming with. Because he knows that he might have to revert to, you know, flirting with the straight girl to get his way, you know, make her reminisce. I think it does still keep her as a plot device, which I don't agree with. But that's how I've always looked at that moment, is that it's his tactical choice to flirt.
Yeah. So then I would have loved a moment there where we see Robin Williams actively then doing like either before he walks in the room, like do a deep breath, like after kind of centering yourself and enter into the room. Something where we see that, Armand's gonna be playing a part in this scene. Like, once again, it's just small little character beats that are
to show that it's a choice.
Yeah. Exactly. That showed that it's a choice, versus him being just openly happy to have her, kind of paw at him and play with his chest hair, which is a very sexual thing to do. Like it's a very sensual thing to play with somebody's chest.
Yeah.
In whatever way you play with somebody's chest. There are nerve endings up there that, very stimulating. So it's like one of those things where it's just, there's a few more character beats I would have liked for her role. But once again, Christine Baranski is just so likable that when she does make the turn, and ultimately when Val makes this thing of, this is my mother, Albert, my mom is Albert, my mother is Katherine, and she does the very nice to meet you, Val.
Yeah.
That right there, and also her scene when Val answers the phone and talks to her over the car phone.
Yeah, and he says, "Mom."
Yes, and she's actively touched by that. I'm like, okay, there's some good character work there. It's just that first scene really sets it off on a weird.
It does add.
It
started with a weird flavor.
Yeah, exactly. All right, let's get into the next question, which is, when this adaptation came out in 1996, it was considered revolutionary for its depiction of the LGBTQIA+ community. The Gay and Lesbian Alliance Against Defamation, GLAAD, as it's otherwise known, praised the film for going beyond the stereotypes to see the characters' depth and humanity. The film celebrates differences and points out the outrageousness of hiding those differences. So, with all that being said, the film is now nearly 30 years old, dear God. Do you find that its representation of the LGBTQIA+ community still holds up? Could this piece be considered dated today? Logan.
It's funny that it gets praised for seeing outside of stereotypes, yet it also engages in portrayal of some stereotypes. I mean, I think of the characters of Agador and even like Albert himself. They're both just stereotypes of what often is considered homosexuality, that quote unquote flaming homosexual stereotype, which I'm not always pleased about. And even though they step outside the box in a lot of their choices, they still have the drag characters portrayed in like native headdress, prancing around the stage. Like there's certain aspects of it where it gets praised for stepping outside of stereotypes, but yet also depicts other stereotypes, which I find annoying about the film. But I understand it because it is that dated aspect to it, because it is that component that's like, it came out in the 90s where most of the time that wasn't considered offensive, or at least to mainstream community, I should say. It wouldn't be considered offensive. Now, as modern people, we know, oh yeah, that was problematic, and we probably shouldn't engage in that again. But, the film produced of that time wasn't considering the same social implications as we are now.
Yeah. Graeme?
So I'm going to sound like a broken record here and be like, ditto, completely agree with what you just said.
Be the catchphrase of the episode.
This episode brought to you by Ditto.
Ditto use transform. It's super effective. Anyways, I do
all dated ourselves there at laughing at that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, we did. But yeah, I do agree that there is a different social context with which this film was acting within. And yes, all of the drag characters are portrayed as the very effeminate gay male or stereotype. And very much at this point in time, I think that even though we have seen that non-binary identity is an old tradition that goes way, way back, there is no discussion of gender identity. This is just a discussion of sexuality. Would the film, I don't know if the film would feel spread too thin if we tried to tack on gender identity, because I think that this film covers a lot of ground already. But that's something that is not brought up at all within, like, we have no non-binary characters. We have no, it's very much a you are gay or you are straight. And it's a very, like, in many ways, it's a very binary situation. So there is no discussion of other aspects of the queer community. There are no lesbians. There are no, it talks about, like, maybe Armin is a bisexual character. I mean, I kind of always read the Katherine scene when I first saw the film as Armin was a bisexual character.
Yeah, I'd buy that.
Like, leaning more towards male, but, he had that time with Katherine, and maybe it was more of a fling than just a one-night stand. And, when I look back on the script now, I can see that, like, it was one of those, like, it was more of that, like, one-night stand or, like, a very short fling that they had, if anything. But again, as a kid watching, I didn't pick up on a lot of those nuances. But I was like, Armin, I could definitely believe as being a bisexual character because he is in the relationship he's in, the more masculine presenting individual. And, and as such also has some stereotypes of being strong, decisive. And so that's why it's also refreshing when I see both Armin and Albert trying to figure out what it's like to be straight men. When they're trying, how about those dolphins?
Fucking A!
Fucking A!
It's just, there's nothing straighter than
like,
just yelling fucking A, right?
Yeah.
Totally. Also nothing straighter than butt packs in the locker room, but, like, sorry, what? What? Oh my God. Calling out hypocrisy? Who do I think I am?
Oh no.
And I really think that what I find delightful about this is how much it shows toxic masculine culture to be such a no-fault system.
It does.
That if you have even one strike against you, you are always like, again, that moment where Albert's in the suit is like, Nathan Lane looks like, pink socks aside, every guy in a suit. When you're in a suit, like, you can be tailored, you can make it look a way, you can have a patterned suit or different material or different colors. Like, yes, all that aside, men in suits are men in suits. And it's a specific look that we were going for. And if you were to just look, once he, like, corrects his walking from the kind of, like, gait that he normally has with the hands out, and once he corrects
to the John Wayne walk.
I just didn't realize John Wayne walked like that.
That is such a beautiful moment. But in the moment when he's sitting down and trying so hard to be straight, it made me think of myself in the closet when I was in elementary school and being like, I'm trying really hard to blend in with everyone. And it's not entirely working. And so there's still, I think, everyone who has struggled with the closet, which admittedly is most people at some point in their life, knows what it's like to feel different from everyone. And even though you're doing everything you can to fit in and doing all the same things the same as your peers, there's something different. And I'll bring up a name that might be controversial but brave to bring up in this space. But Sky Gilbert, I remember saying, it's like, there's a problem when you try and create this narrative that gay people and straight people are exactly the same, because eventually the straight people are going to realize that we're not. And like it or not, in this social, political, and societal structure that we find ourselves in, it is very heteronormative still to this day. And that being the case, straight people still have inordinate amounts of power in the social on the social stage. So we still put up with queer people being lambasted in terms of, like, are they predatory? Are they mentally ill? These are things that are in the news like yesterday.
Well, I'm mentally ill, but it's not related to me being gay.
Yeah. And it's just, I think that, yes, the film is dated. Yes, there are problematic components. Does it make the film less enjoyable? No. Was it revolutionary for its time? I think the very like pivotal phrase here is for its time.
Yes.
Because it's also I think it's bad business to look at art of the past with the lens of the present without understanding that it was a different time, that we believed different things, we talked about different things. Things were just, again, queerness not discussed. Like, not until, like, the only time I remember queerness, like, actually starting to be discussed in a positive light that wasn't some dirty little secret you push aside, was after I was already out of high school. So we're looking at, like, 2012 to 2014 area. I will date myself with that one. Like, that's when, like, all my way through school, queerness was something that was a dirty little secret. You got
Yep.
bullied for it, and it's that you still get bullied for it. But that's the world that this film was created in. So the fact that it showed an openly queer couple and a healthy depiction of a couple at that rate, not just completely leaning into stereotypes. Yeah, there were stereotypes, but at the same time, there are so many people like Albert in the world. In Toronto alone, there are so many people like Albert. There are moments where I'm like, I'm fucking Albert. Like,
you need those Puritan tablets, Graham.
I need those. I need my Puritan tablets. I don't know. Tablets. I don't know if I'll make it through. And so I think that while it is dated, I think this is a pretty good. It still holds up, and as I watch it, I still have a lot of good substance to chew on. And I can point out, it's like, that's a little problematic. That's a little, like, I would change that. That's not right anymore. But overall, I was still thinking about this analysis of straight culture versus gay culture and the two worlds colliding. And that's what this film does. And if it starts a discussion, great.
I agree.
Yeah. I mean, I'll say, for me, does its representation still hold up? In some ways, yes. There are other ways where, we've become more refined over time. Like, I guarantee if they made it today, we would definitely get more clear identification of how does Albert identify? Because we never really get a proper definition. Because, I mean, the whole joke that we made at the beginning where we quoted the scene of, because you're a man and I'm a woman, you're not a woman. Oh, you bastard, right? Yeah. Nowadays, we would never joke about that because, Albert may very well identify as a woman. Ergo,
or non-binary.
Or as non-binary.
Or whatever.
Exactly, or fluid, right? So, I think the jokes about Albert and Armand's relationship and that dynamic definitely would have been refined a bit more. Like, as we said, I would absolutely see Armand being portrayed as a bisexual individual versus just gay and just like one way or the other way, gay or straight, you're gonna have to pick a lane. It's like there's much more diversity in how you would refine who these characters are. Same thing with Agador Spartacus. You could absolutely make that character a trans character.
Yes.
In this, you could absolutely refine.
Maybe fled a country where they would have been persecuted very harshly, and that's why they're in America right now.
There you go.
I don't know.
Could be a good story.
Right? And you can absolutely refine and create, and once again, in 1996, we have to the representation of homosexuality in the LGBTQI plus community in the media at that time was, not as diverse as it is now. I mean, you got to think Will and Grace came out, right? Mid 90s, this was when Will and Grace started coming out. You had, I'm trying to think what other big things. I mean, Angels in America had just come out early 90s as a play. It wasn't even wasn't like a movie yet. What's the other big play about the LGBT?
Oh, I mean, Lacage came out in the 80s.
I know there's another one where it's about the AIDS crisis.
Oh, Normal Heart?
Normal Heart. Thank you. Normal Heart came out mid 90s as well. So we're just starting to get more into this world. And even then, in the 80s when Lacage came out, there was talk about how, they cast George Hearn. I forget the actor who played George in that one. But they both were straight men. They weren't gay. And producers actively said, tone it down, make it less flamboyant, tone it down, make it as kind of passing for straight as we can. So then it sells the show to more audience members. Like where this show when this movie came out, it was absolutely revolutionary. We would not have Kurt in Glee doing his stuff in the end of the 2000s, or Mitchell and Kim in Modern Family. As we said, there's a very clear model of Armand and Albert in Mitch and Cam.
Very, very much that.
This was a major stepping stone, and as Graeme said, we never should poo-poo this piece because it, is in our 2023 as maybe a bit maybe a bit dated, maybe not as current or as refined as we would have done it today. This is still very much an important piece that, talks about loving the people no matter what you are, and just acceptance. And love and acceptance is the moral of the story here. And I think that's the biggest takeaway of the piece. It's just embrace the love and acceptance of the piece is
I would
kind of
agree.
where I would go with that. Graeme.
I think that it's important to acknowledge that what you said was exactly right. This is a stepping stone.
Mhm.
Art is a process of constant refining and constant criticism. And the fact that we criticize allows us to get better. That's why theater criticism and film criticism, as much as we view them as just the tabloid things that you read in Now Magazine, is very important, because if you disregard the critic altogether, you're never going to improve. And queer plays are not...
You put that on a t-shirt. That's a good one.
Oh my God, I feel like I don't even listen to that one myself. But
that's why you need it on a shirt.
Exactly. It wouldn't. Also, I can pair that with it wouldn't be theater without all the drama.
Exactly.
Because anyone who's booking a production knows that there's drama.
Exactly.
But queer plays are not a new thing. Queer characters in plays are not a new thing. Tennessee Williams.
Yep.
Yeah.
His entire career, all of his plays kind of skirted the issue of queerness, presented queer characters or ambiguously queer characters. And it was kind of like a very pessimistic, I would dare say, like, in a way, this one's a big stretch, but like a kind of post-apocalypse of queerness, where it's like either someone has just died or the queer person is suffering and is in a decay portion. So in a way, like, we have Tennessee Williams showing queer trauma in a way, and audiences ate it the fuck up because they love queer trauma. To this day, audiences are voracious for suffering gays. And so throughout the 20th century, Broadway is full of problem plays. In 1936, we have The Children's Hour by Lillian Hellman, where we have queer characters who are very self-loathing and honestly and don't end happily at all. Like, their life falls apart as soon as they're outed, and it shows that the only way you can be happy is a straight life. And this is a play written by a straight white woman about queerness, and so it's all very cartoonish and caricature-ish. And I think the Birdcage is just a stepping stone where we've gotten far enough out of... We're starting to see genuine depictions of queer characters in all of the plays that you mentioned, Mackenzie. We have The Normal Heart, we have Angels in America, we have Will and Grace. Like, we're starting to see other characters that are queer and not suffering, and it's not necessarily like, they're still problem plays, but it's not... It has a different ending, and that's what I think is different about this particular problem play. Is it has a different ending. They choose to frame it in a way that is positive and leans towards finding acceptance, which again is very cliche as well, because a problem play
gives it a resolution, though, which is nice.
Yeah, so I think that though this is not a perfect story or narrative, it is that stepping stone to where we are now, where now we are seeing genuine, real, lifelike queer characters that are, you know, again, not devoid of cliches to this day. Like, I remember seeing Grace and Frankie, and as soon as they introduced like the gay intern character, as soon as I saw the costume design, I'm like, that's the gay intern. I know.
Oh, of course.
Like, it was very obvious. And then, of course, the first line out of his mouth was, so I tested this lube out by like hooking up with my ex, and then also this person. I'm like, and promiscuity, there it is. Like, it's the promiscuous gay intern who drinks iced coffee.
But the thing is, I know those people.
I know.
There is an element of truth, right? Like,
the thing is, we can't ever eliminate cliches because and stereotypes, because they exist for a reason. They are, and honestly, like, if that's the life someone loves to live, like, who am I to tell them, like, you know what? You're stereotypical. You should read some Descartes, or you should read more Shakespeare. Like, why? But and what I also like about this film is that it doesn't really like depict like the like open relationship for queerness, which to the, like today is very much something that's like, it's like we're gonna try to like depict polyamory in queer relationships, but there are some that I call like homonormative.
Like, we talked about it in Company.
Gay people, exactly, who are like, we want the straight life, we want the wife, or like the married life, the kids, the white picket fence. We want all of that, but we're two men, we're two women, we're two non-binary folks. Like, we don't want to live the life where we are the hedonistic party animal who's in the club like 4 nights a week. Like, we want to...
I love the way you described that, the hedonistic party animal.
That I cannot take credit for. That is definitely from an article I read years ago by Stephen Dirk, I want to say. And it's just the two major depictions of queerness in media. It's the homonormative individual, the pick-me gay, as it were. The one who's like, I'm just like all of you, except I like dick. And then there's the hedonistic party animal who completely... and they epitomize the kind of dual goals of queerness of autonomy from straight culture and assimilation with straight culture, where and it's a weird thing that these two sides will never agree, because on one hand, why do we want to be part of a dominant culture that is so oppressive and broken? On the other hand, being a counterculture has its perils, we'll say, as we're seeing right now. Being a counterculture, not a good time for a lot of people around the world.
Yeah.
Thank you for coming to my TED Talk.
Thank you for giving us your TED Talk.
Yes, it's a beautiful TED Talk. And let's wrap it up. I mean, I'm sure we're all going to have the same response of, would you recommend this film for other viewers to watch? Logan?
Absolutely not, of course. Yes, 100%. I would recommend it, especially if you are any kind of a part of the LGBTQ community. It is a part of our modern culture, and there's lots of it that is currently trying to be taken away from us. Again, not to get too political, but do things that promote queerness and queer culture, and this is a big thing in our history, believe it or not. And it's Robert Williams and Nathan Lane.
Exactly. Graeme?
Yes, because you don't know how much longer until this film gets banned for depicting a queer relationship. So I think that, again, we've talked about a lot of problematic components, or not a lot, but like some problematic components that are found in it that date this piece in the 90s. But you owe it to yourself as a queer person to watch this film, if only to be aware, because again, we shouldn't avoid everything problematic. We can take a look at it, see it, and be like, okay, this is a moment. This is a teachable moment where we know better, and we can see, oh, that's unacceptable by today's standards. Cool. It's never a bad thing to reinforce that, like, have these conversations. So I'd say that the good of this film vastly outweigh the problems, and it's well worth, if you want to have a good time, if you like fun, you should watch The Birdcage, because you will be quoting it with all of your friends, because there are just so many moments that make me laugh to this day in a genuine way. Not one of those polite, oh, that's so funny. No, it's like...
Yeah. And I will say, for me, as the straight identifying person of the trio, go and see it, because, once again, this is a story about acceptance and love. And we need that message now more than ever in the world. I would send a copy of this to every right-wing political person in Canada and in the US and all over the world, and go, watch this film, because your life goal should not be about restricting and banning other people's lifestyles just because it's not your lifestyle. You should be, as a politician, be passing laws and bills that, yes, protect everybody and make sure we all live in a safe world, but also make sure it is a world of acceptance and love and tolerance. And I think, and my hope is that Senator Keeley and Mrs. Keeley come away from their dinner with the Colemans, maybe being a little bit less anti-Semitic, maybe being a little bit more tolerant of the other side.
I would agree.
That's my hope in the world, is that they come away with a better viewpoint of the world. And I think if more people watch this film and have a laugh and also feel the heart, they will also, have that feeling too. So for me, I just go, watch this film. It's a beautiful film. Yes, are there elements that are dated and not as, refined as they would be today? Sure. But as we have said, it's a stepping stone. It's an important stepping stone. And it is a star-studded cast who are giving a honest, genuine performance and are not shying away and making light of this serious topic that they are covering in a very farcical, comedic way. They do a beautiful job. So for me, I just say, yes, watch. So that's it there. Before we go, let's all give our handles and sign-offs. Graeme, where can people find and follow you?
So you can find me on Instagram at Instagram999. That's spelled Graeme, not like the cracker.
Yeah.
And you can find me on Facebook at Graeme McClelland.
Love that. Logan?
You can find me on Instagram at itsmethec_hag. Yeah, that's about it. That's all I got.
I love that. You can follow me at Mackenzie Horner, all social media platforms. You can follow my musical antics over at Before the Downbeat, a musical podcast. We have yet to cover Lacage, but Lord knows we will be doing that in the upcoming seasons. Who knows? Maybe there'll be some guest appearances when we do that episode. One never knows. But yes, we definitely will be covering Lacage at some point. It's one of those moving episodes that it gets scheduled every season and something comes up in it, and that's the episode that gets moved to the next season. It's definitely one that we want to talk about very soon. Hopefully, maybe this season, if not for sure next season.
No, that's worth talking about.
It so is. It so is. And I would definitely say I would love to see a live action adaptation or film version of Lacage done on film.
That would be lovely.
And also get Harvey Preston to refine the book some more now that he can, because once again, he did it in the 80s and now he can refine it now for film, and it'd be great. But there we go. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in. My wonderful peoples, cheers to you. Thank you for sharing this wonderful conversation with me, and we will see you all in our next episode.